All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Muzzle is Off podcast. I am your host, Nakia Monet, and we have a very special guest in with us today. We have Dr. Cass with us today, and we are going to continue on with our topic of mental health, mental wealth, and the road to healing. Like I said last week, I just think that this is extremely important that we begin to have this discussion about mental health awareness, especially being that this is the month of September and September is Suicide Prevention Month. And I just think that it is just imperative. And honestly, I didn't find that out until about last week that the month of September was Suicide Prevention Month, Suicide Awareness Month. So I just think that it's kind of timely that we're actually unpacking mental health and asking and posing the most important question, which is, are you really okay? A lot of times we ask people that question, how are you? How are you doing? And, we automatically just expect them to say, oh, I'm good, blah, blah, blah. But we don't necessarily wait to stick around to understand whether is that person really okay? Are they really good? Or is that just like a cover for what they want, for what they don't want to share with you, right? So I just wanted to really just take the time and really unpack mental health check, mental wealth, and really unpack the road to healing. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the times, sometimes we just don't know, right? And sometimes we could be experiencing things and we can go through things and we just think that, I just got to chalk this up, carry this on my shoulders and, just walk, as opposed to possibly seeking out help in order to unpack what it is that you just experienced. So, Dr. Cass, go on ahead. I want you to introduce yourself to the people, to everybody that is going to be listening. Tell the people who you are. Tell them what you're about. Just tell them you.
Hello. So my name is Dr. Cassandra Hutchins, or Dr. Cass for short, and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of New Jersey. So what that means is that I am able to do both psychological evaluations and therapy. Right now, my practice is mostly focused on therapy, especially with the pandemic. I'm only working virtually. So I'm seeing all of my patients through video. My specialties consist of treatment of depression, anxiety, stress management, trauma, relationship difficulties. I think that's it. So, and I've been in private practice for 5 years, and I've had my own private practice for the past 2.5 years, almost 3 years now. And it's been an amazing journey. Prior to private practice, I worked for a mental health clinic, another private practice, and I've also done work in different prison settings and juvenile detention centers, as well as what are those called? Like group homes. Sorry, had a mental fog. So, and group home settings. And prior to that, I also worked for DCP&P, and so I have like the whole foster child side of experience, which has helped me when I've done my evaluations of different parents, parental assessments and such. So that's my background, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. And I truly do appreciate you coming, because one of the things that I keep saying is that I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not specialized in the field. So there would not be a time where I would have a discussion without having a professional on in order to really and truly discuss it and unpack it the way that it needs to. Because I really do feel that it is important and it should be handled with care and delicately, just for the simple fact that sometimes this is a fragile or even a taboo type of subject, right?
Yeah.
What do you think makes mental health so taboo?
Good question. I mean, I think really people just don't like labels. They don't want to be classified as having something. But we have to learn to embrace like what the label can do for us, because if we know what it is, then we know how to treat it. And so my husband used to joke about like the whole short bus mentality, right? Like people don't want to be classified as something, be that one special case. But, truth be told, we're all pretty special in our own ways, right? Like we all have our sides to ourselves that need work, and we really just need to shed light on them, right? As uncomfortable as it may feel. So to answer your question, I think people just don't like to be classified. It's scary. It's scary. And it's even scary to be classified as something, because guess what? That means it's something that you need to work on. Right?
Right. I know for myself, when they classify me as suffering from PTSD, with signs of anxiety and depression, I was like, now I'm a statistic. I'm dramatic. I'm a Capricorn. We are naturally dramatic people. So everything with me goes into, now I'm a statistic. Now I'm going to show up in the national data of whatever this database says that this is how many people with this. And I'm like, damn, I never wanted to be that. So you're right. Like as far as the official classification, because you don't want to be classified. You don't. And sometimes you don't even want to acknowledge that there really is an issue.
Yeah.
And sometimes that self-realization hits you hard. Because for me, I know when I was diagnosed, I just really thought that the Lord was just waking me up at all times of the night, not realizing that I actually was just anxious. I had anxiety. So in my head, it was like, no, you got to pray, girl. You got to pray. The Lord is waking you up. We church folk, they will tell you, because the Lord keeps you waking up at this time. That's your third watch. This is the fifth watch. That's the sixth watch. No, honey, you on that third watch. You got to pray. That's your watch. That is the time that the Lord is giving you. And really and truly, I was suffering from anxiety and had no idea, but I was up praying and it wasn't working.
Wow. Yeah.
But I think that a lot of times it does come with a bit of sometimes you need that classification so that you can get the help.
Yeah. When we know what it is, when we know what the diagnosis is, now we can figure out what best course of treatment to take. And so speaking of church, I love when people tell me that they're religious. It sounds like, maybe you've had quite an experience there, but we can use prayer to our advantage, right? We can use prayer to help treat the anxiety. But we have to understand what it is that's keeping you up, right? And like why, before just saying, oh, let's just generically pray about it.
Honey, I was on that good third watch praying all the heavens, and listen, and that wasn't what I was supposed to be praying for.
Yeah.
And that's the key. The key is because you know why? Because when you on the third watch, right? Every watch has different meanings. So for the third watch, you're praying for something that's very specific, right? So I'm praying for that specific thing. And it's like, God is like, no. Boo, you anxious? You can't sleep. Because then it was like, I'm up all night and then I'm tired all day. But either way, I'm still not sleeping. So it's like you're suffering from depression and anxiety all at the same time, and you can't function. But you're functioning somehow, some way, but something is lacking. But yeah. But I like how you just said that, like, basically, no, we can definitely use prayer, but we can use it as a tool to help you to cope with what it is that you're facing. And I think that is important, because once you identify it, whatever your it is, then you can use that in order to propel you into your road to healing and get you on the right course. Yeah.
Absolutely. Very well said.
I try, girl. I try. I told you, listen. I'm analytical. I ain't psychological. There's a difference. You know what I'm saying?
Not much different.
I can't give you all the inner workings. I could read it and place it up here and be like, oh, okay, I can get that and I can spit it back. But other than that, it's a wrap. I can't give you anything else. That's it. But
but the taboo is becoming less and less now. Thankfully, there is a lot of light being shed on mental health and the importance of it. And I always like to compare mental health to physical health, right? Because everybody knows, like, we have to have good physical health, like, let me drink enough water and let me, get my vegetable and fruit intake in and, all of these things. But then we neglect how important the mind-body relationship is, right? Like, We have to start here first and then think about what the body needs, and allow the mind to control the body, because with anxiety, guess what? Your body's controlling your mind at this point, right? Like,
so is that what it is? With anxiety, your body's controlling your mind.
yeah, your body's taking over. Your body has taken over. Okay, so it's not that it's controlling your mind, but it's taken over now. But what we want is for the mind to have control over the body.
That is very interesting. So as you can see, I've never necessarily received help for my anxiety. I just learned how to deal with it as the days go by, but I never really viewed it as basically your body's waging war, a battle against your mind, and then you gotta kind of flip it a little bit.
Well, it's kind of like it's just doing its own thing without direction, right? Like, kind of like an unruly teenager. Like, it's just kind of just out there doing what it wants.
That makes sense.
We need like supervision, right? We need to check in and like say, hey, nobody, like, let's bring it back in. What's going on? Right?
So okay, now that we're down that road, so let's just travel there just for a hot second. Because a lot of times people say that you can have, let's say, like a panic attack or an anxiety attack, right? Based on what you're thinking. But then because what you're thinking then causes your body to react a certain way, right? So then it's like your body then takes over, because when you have those types of anxiety attacks or panic attacks, you literally do feel like you are out of control and you don't know what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well,
and so, okay, so to that point, right? A lot of us kind of live mindlessly, like unconsciously, without purpose, without intent. We're just kind of like surviving. But when we are intentional and focused about what it is that we are thinking, we can shift how that thought sounds in our mind so that our body responds accordingly. Right? So, and that's what we call mindfulness awareness, right? Like being aware of what your mind is full of. What are those thoughts sounding like? Right? Like,
right.
What the heck are you thinking about that's causing you to have this physiological reaction? Right? Because there is a way to think about, fact-based events, but structure it in a way that still feels factual and realistic, but also positive and healthy.
Right.
So that's intentional, right? Like that's something we have to practice doing intentionally until it becomes effortless. It took me about 2 years. So I like to always tell that to people. It's not like an overnight thing, because guess what? If you're 20 or 30 or 40, then that's 20 or 30 or 40 years that you have to reprogram. So that's not an overnight process. You're going to have to be constantly checking in to say, how am I thinking about this situation? What is my mind saying right now? And how can I restructure that thought so that I can continue to strengthen new ways of thinking, right? The neural pathways. We want to build and then strengthen new neural pathways so that we regain control over the entire body.
I like that. That's good. So what if someone feels that they're not even thinking about anything and they literally just go into a panic?
Yeah, that's what happens actually, right? Like the body starts to work on autopilot. Like it's just doing its own thing. And so you may be so out of touch with what you're thinking, you don't even really recognize a trigger. Right? And that actually is really common, especially for people who have severe anxiety. They're like, oh, I don't even know why I'm anxious now. Right? So it's just a new way of living. This is just what you're used to. So whatever it is that's probably bothering you or triggering you has probably been living there for quite some time. It's like a roommate, like just is what it is.
And it can dwell even in your subconscious mind.
Oh yeah.
See, y'all, we just trying to help unpack certain things. We're not trying to give all the secrets away, because y'all gonna have to pay Dr. Cass for that. Okay. there is a fee associated with seeking the good help and doing the good work. However, I do think that it is important for us to highlight that there are these differences even within depression, right? One of the things that I learned about depression was that part of why I was feeling depressed had a lot to do with what I was eating, and my serotonin levels were being affected by a lack of working out, a complete lack of sleep, and on top of that, a lack of eating, properly. On top of everything else that was going on, you know what I'm saying? Some things just depress you in life, and you got to deal with those things as well. But I think that, like how you said, mind, body, soul, and we want to treat certain aspects. So it's like, okay, I'll get the food in order, I'll get this in order, but your body's still out of order and your mind is still out of order. So you're still battling within the same realm, without actually doing the full and the complete work of ensuring that you're actually whole, if that makes sense. Did that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because sometimes, but that's how, like, that literally is how I'm thinking about a lot of this stuff. But I guess the question would be is, how exactly would someone know that they even need help? Because I didn't know I needed help, to be honest with you, until they told me. And I just happened to go to a marriage counselor. She was a Christian counselor, but she had a licensed psychologist there that had to do the psychological evaluation. And when he did the evaluation, these were the things that he came up with or whatever. So I did not know. Are there certain signs, or is there a certain level of awareness within yourself that could help you become aware that, I might need to go sit on somebody's couch, or virtually, you sit in your chair and I sit in my chair, and talk some things out? How do we know?
There's no black and white way to answer that.
Mm-hmm.
What I also like to tell my patients is that everyone at any given moment can really benefit from having psychological assistance. Because everyone at any given moment can be going through something, whether large or small, that we can, that we may need to talk about and unpack and process with outside minds. But there are some symptoms, right, that you can look out for, that we can all look out for, to make sure that we are functioning as best we can. Right? We're not looking for perfection. I always say, let's not strive for perfection. Let's just strive for our best selves now. Right? And that's going to look different every moment. But some of those signs, especially if we're thinking about something like a pandemic where, there's a global impact, we have to look for how we're feeling during the adjustment. Right? Like, so an adjustment for people to have, less social contact and to be confined in their own homes, and maybe to even be working from home while their children are home, whatever, a bunch of things. And so we have to be checking in order to know that there's something wrong. So like, all right, well, I don't feel as good as I did a month ago. Like, what's the matter? Has something changed? Or I'm not as hungry as I used to be. Like, why is that? Or I don't really enjoy talking to my friends anymore. Why is that? We have to be aware of these things, right? We have to be aware that there is some type of shift occurring. Or maybe not a shift, but people around you are like saying things that maybe you weren't yet aware of. And then now you just have to listen. But it does take an openness. So those symptoms can look different for everyone, but we just have to look for shifts, negative shifts of just feeling unusual, unsatisfied, right? We may have been normal, but now we're at a point where we're like, that doesn't feel healthy anymore, and it no longer feels satisfying. What's that about? Right? Self-development and expansion. And so we also hit those points in life where life may have felt great, and then you're like, wait, you hit a wall, and it's like, it's not enough anymore. Something's missing.
That's interesting. No, but that's really good too, because like you said, it really boils down to a point of self-awareness.
Yeah.
You definitely need to be aware of the shifts in your your attitude, in your environment, in your feelings, in your emotions, in everything. Because I know from and y'all gonna hear this a lot tonight because I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for the, generalized public, but I know for myself, when I began to lose focus, I'm a very focused person. I'm a very driven person. So when I began to lose focus and I began to lose even the drive to even want to do certain things, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what it was. And then it was kind of like when I hit like a plateau of everything being wrong, it was like, okay, I personally, up until that point, had never necessarily felt like I wanted to end my life. But in that moment, or in that day, I was like, this is too much and I can't deal with this. I don't want to deal with this. I don't even want to live anymore. That's it, And I think that literally is what kind of shifted me into realizing I need help. Like this environment is not conducive for my well-being. So now I need help, which is what, made me go to the marriage counselor, although I didn't, every counselor is not the right counselor for you, but at least it opened my eyes to what was actually going on. So then I was able to deal with it in that space and in that realm and realize like, I'm not crazy. I knew something was wrong and this is what it is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be a very heavy feeling, that's also another sign, right? Like you just feel weighed down, like exhausted and fed up. That can be a strong sign. Hey, like is something going on that my mind and my body does not like? What is it?
And your mind and your body is going to tell you a whole lot. Because I'm not even going to hold you. For the month of August, I have been on a good, strict regimen as far as my good diet was concerned. I was doing good. And not that I was dieting, I just restricted myself a lot. And then for August, I was like, you know what? Forget these restrictions. I'm going to be free. This is what I'm going to do. But when I did that, my entire mood shifted. Like my body was just like, I'm tired. I was tired all the time. And I just did not have the mental capacity to deal with anybody, to be honest, right? But I had, being, working and stuff like that, I had to force myself to find that mental capacity. But I realized, I said, some of this slump is self-imposed, right? Because I shifted something that I probably should not have shifted. You know what I'm saying? Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like when you shift something that you possibly just should not have shifted, then I realized, I was like, well, then I put myself on a time schedule. I was like, you know what? That's September 1st. That's it. It's a wrap. Forget this burger. I don't want it anymore. And that's how we're going to do. But it literally does come at a point of self-awareness, because I realized that with that shift happened, it really had nothing to do with food. It was everything. It had everything to do that was mental. That was mentally of what I was thinking about. So therefore, because I was thinking about certain things, I didn't care about my mental health or my physical health, even, as far as what I was actually consuming. And, that can definitely play a toll in how you feel and how you're actually functioning. Because I was not functioning properly in a good month of August. I ain't even gonna lie. That function was off. I was like, oh my God, what is wrong? But then I realized that it was a shift. So sometimes,
you know what? That's important though, because you realized it. A lot of people kind of stay stuck in that state, right? Because they're just not that self-aware. But like you recognize that August was difficult. So like we have to be able, like you said earlier, to be aware of what's going on, and as I said, like what that shift is, so that we can now kind of like move through the moment.
Right. And like you said, think about things positively, not negatively.
Yeah.
And shifting your thought process and your thought pattern and how you view certain things. There was I always forget this term, but you know how there are certain dates that signify certain things in your life, right? Like for me, which is weird, April 24th will forever be a date that, number one, that was the date my biological father died, right? That also was the date that I learned that the baby I was carrying died, right? in my womb, right? That also was a date that my ex-husband put my head through a car window. Literally all April 24th, right? That also was a date that an ex of mine, it was a very traumatic experience as far as what took place at the prison that he was at. So it's like April 24th forever will signify very traumatic experiences, right?
Right. An anniversary of trauma.
Girl, every year.
Yeah.
And what I had to do was I can't change the memory, right? Because these things happen on that date. But I had to every year try to change how I feel about it, right? To process through the trauma that occurred on that date. That date is like forever, like in infamy, April 24th. And it's just so hard. And I think that a lot of times us as a people, sometimes we don't realize the significance of certain dates, right? So we think that we're just going through the motions, but we're like, for me, it's like when I think back, I'm like, oh, snap, this is what happened. So boom. So I'll try to shift it fast. And sometimes my shifting, it doesn't happen fast and it happens slow. And then, then we got a whole month of eating burgers.
Yeah. So for you, like, because you recognize it, it's probably best to like commemorate like that trauma. Maybe the loss of your baby, right? That one seems to be the most significant of them all.
Yeah, it is.
I'm just assuming. So like try your best to just turn it into a different kind of anniversary that also recognizes those losses. And so that's how you can shift it, right? So just as like a personal disclosure, my niece, who I never got to meet, died. And so my husband and I, a few years ago, my husband and I got married on her birthday. And so now like her parents and also my husband, who was very close to her, like can view that day, as like a happier day, right? So like her birthday and then also like our wedding day, and we're very close to her parents. And so like, it just helps. It helps to get through the anniversary, add a new memory, and you can also take some sense of control over that day. Right? Like on those anniversaries, you didn't have any control over those moments. Right? But going forward, you can figure out a way to regain some sense of control so that the memory can shift.
See, now that is a good pointer, people. You have to control those moments that you have control over. Yeah. You didn't have control over them in the past because that already happened. But how you remember it is how you place your control in it. And then you just like you guys did. You guys got married on that day. So now it's a day of celebration.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't know about this whole wedding thing. I don't know. I don't know. But I like that. That right there. That means that's good.
Yeah.
So I've always wondered this. I don't know if anybody else ever wondered it, but I know I have. Why is it that when you actually do seek out counseling and you go to therapy, why do we always have to travel back to our childhood? Why can't I just tell you this what happened last year?
Nah.
And nah.
You know why? Because our early on attachments, our early on life experiences help to shape who we are today. It helps to shape like the way we think, the way we behave, and also it helps to put perspective into why we make those decisions. So why, like, what led you to the decision that happened last year, right? Like, that's why it's important. Now, that doesn't mean we need to stay there. Every therapist is different. For me, I definitely use the first 2 or so sessions discussing childhood, depending on how significant it is. Because I really need to have like an overall picture of who you are, not just like who you are today. I need to know who you were yesterday and the day before too.
I was me. I'm joking. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
But like seriously, like when we think about things that may have happened early on, like how our parents responded to us, what those attachments were, what those relationships were, if anything else traumatic happens, right? Significant life moments that helped to develop you into the now. All of those are important. It's a full picture. It's a full picture. So there are some therapists who spend more time in the childhood. I do not. But I do go back and forth if I need to, if I find that it's relevant. But that's why.
Okay, fine. I can get with that. I can get with that level of understanding. It has always been a sore point for me because I'm like, I'm not 5. I cannot relive 5. There's some things at 5 that I don't want to necessarily relive or remember for that matter. But okay, we need to go there. But can we please speed this up to today? Because
how significant that was. There's some things that happened at 5 that I don't want to relive.
Yes.
That within it, like that type of statement sounds avoided and almost like it was something traumatic that happened that's important to talk about.
It's not important.
I'm just saying.
We don't need to go there at 5. Let's deal with, all right, this happened, then boom. And now we had to move on and move forward to 39 and let's deal with this 39-year-old self. I'm just joking. But I say that and not because I don't recognize the importance of it, but like you said, sometimes now everybody has their own methodology. Everybody has their own, their own paths in order to get you to where you need to be. But sometimes what I feel is that if I'm in an hour-long session with you and I'm talking about 5-year-old me, right? 6-year-old, 15-year-old, whichever year old we at, to the point where we made it to, sometimes you can uncover and you can reopen up those things. And in an hour-long session, we don't have time to close that stuff back up, right? So now I'm over here mad at my mother, father, whoever, because when I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
So sometimes like you said, everybody has their own method. Everybody has their own way. But I truly think that it is important that we cannot open people up and not close them back in the right amount of time, right?
I agree with that. And that's not always possible. But when we're talking about trauma-focused therapy, there are techniques that we use to close the person back up. And one of which also includes having like a plan in place that you can rely on in the interim until the next session.
All right. So therapists have a plan in place. Because let me tell you, if I come to you and you open me up to 5-year-old me, you better make sure I'm closed up because I'm not getting up. I'm like, no, we need a whole nother hour to get through this because I'm not going to walk out of here mad at what happened at 5.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. How much more for this hour? Because let's do it. Look, bill that to EAP. Okay.
Yes. I feel you on that. That's true. Very true.
Get that CPT code together, okay? Handle that billing code, please, and thank you.
Right.
Oh, Gail said a safety plan.
Yeah.
See, Gail, safety plan. I'm gonna be very honest with you. So I have not necessarily gone through any formal counseling, and part of the reason being is because I found that, and not every counselor is the same. I get that, so y'all don't jump me for saying what I'm about to say. But when you feel wounded by a counselor because you felt like they were not necessarily hearing you, it's very hard to open back up to another counselor, right? Because then you it's kind of like you have like, I know for myself, I have a wall built up with me and counselors because what happened before, I was like, that can never happen again. Although the woman apologized that I felt the way that I felt, because she did acknowledge the fact of how I felt, and she did acknowledge the fact that that was not her intention. But like I told her, I said, and I was very honest with her. I said, I don't think that you were prepared enough to deal with someone that has a narcissistic personality disorder. And I think that probably should have been handled by a real licensed psychologist, one that is trained to pick up and understand, those traits. And I was like, you really weren't able to do that. I was like, and both of y'all, the licensed psychologist and you, were just so focused on the fact that he was, in ministry or whatever, that you failed to recognize that this man had an issue. We were literally sitting in the counseling session and he was literally playing a game on his phone. I'm like, that is a damn sign, man. That was a sign from the good heavens above. And she just looked at him. She was like, put your phone down. And I was like, no, you're missing the sign, because that right there, that means something. Like what he's doing, that is a pure way of deflection and also lack of accountability. Like that's narcissistic 101, But I literally had to learn some things by going on freaking Google and watching YouTube videos in order to help me, right? Because I had to figure out for myself what attracted me to that, right? Relationships. Everybody that deals in relationships, we have to understand the attraction. I don't know if there's a psychological term for that, but I'm gonna call it the attraction mechanism. What attracts you to people, and okay, look, you heard that, attraction mechanism. Don't judge me, and don't steal it neither. I'm joking, no. But but we have to deal with that. Like what is that attraction? What has attracted him to me, and then what then attracted me to him, right? So I literally had to learn about myself.
Yeah.
That I am codependent. I have a need to be needed. And if I feel it at that time, right? Because I have since worked very hard to try and free myself from that, because it's not a very healthy way to live. But when you begin to recognize certain character traits within yourself, right, and you recognize that, then you begin to work on those things in which you recognize it. Because codependency, that's psychological, you know what I'm saying? But I wasn't really well versed in all of that, so I just knew that I love to help people, not realizing that love to help people really came from a need to be needed by people. See what I'm saying? Had to learn. So yeah,
where the muzzle is off came from.
Hello. That is where it came from. You better use all liquor. Yes, that is where it came from. Because it literally, all jokes aside, it literally had to come off because I didn't want to walk around in guilt and shame, right? And also not give other people that were also walking around in the same way, not give them an opportunity to use their voice, right? Because I was always taught that you just be quiet and you deal with it. You be quiet and you deal with it. You know what I'm saying? You don't talk, you don't do anything. What goes on in the house stays in the house. I never forget, because I had blasted him, because I caught him at the little church service with the girl he married to right now. So I had blasted him. And he literally got up in front of the whole church and basically told them, basically said I was wrong for what I did. And that because what goes on in the house should stay in the house. And I sat there, I was like, wait. You were supposed to be apologizing for what you did. Me and you were married and you were caught, but then you just kind of flipped this whole thing and blamed me in front of the whole church. And I was like, wait. And at that time I was pregnant, so I was like, I can't get mad, because if I get upset, this baby's gonna feel me being upset, and then I don't want to be upset. But then the people came to me afterwards and were like, did he just blame me? And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much what he did. But that's all right, because he's about to be up out of here, because I'm not dealing with this foolishness no more. So, but I had to learn, through that process, I had to learn a whole lot about myself. And I think that sometimes when we're going through certain things, we begin to learn how other experiences have shaped us, right? Yeah. Like that childhood experience that I don't like to deal with. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. What did I see growing up that made codependency okay? This ain't about me, y'all, but I'm just saying, because I got to use me as an example. I can only talk about myself, so I can use me as an example to help y'all. Real talk, I like to use myself as an example to help other people, because this is why the muzzle had to come off. I can't be ashamed of things that I literally have experienced in life. And at the end of the day, whoever gets upset about it, you're just going to be upset and mad at yourself. But I have to use my voice in order to help other people so that they can become free and not experience the same type of stuff. And a lot of times we experience so much in relationships because we're not understanding that attraction. What is attracting me to your type? And how do I break free from this type? Why do I keep attracting people that don't trust me? Because oftentimes, right, we then look at ourselves and be like, I mean, is it me? No, it's not you. You know, you're a trustworthy person. So what is it? It's something that, you know, and in relationship, and that just goes even as far as friendships, you know what I'm saying? Everything is not just about, you know, romantic. Some things are literally about platonic friendships. What do you attract? And, you know, I was always the help. I was literally the helper. So I would help you over helping myself. So that codependency runs deep. It goes way deeper beyond, you know, like an intimate relationship. It goes into it literally consumes you and how you are. I was that way, like with friends. I was that way with family. I just wanted to help everybody. And then it came to a point where when I needed help, there was nobody that really could help me. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I just think that is important for us to understand that relationship dynamic. But you, the doctor, go ahead. What you go ahead. Tell the people about their relationships.
Well, to your point, right? We have to ask ourselves, well, who's the common denominator in all of these relationships and friendships? It's me, right? So there must be something that I'm doing to attract this experience. And what is it and why? What is it that I need to learn? So even going back to your marital experience, what that experience taught you was that there's an underlying need that you needed to address and repair. Okay. And so, yeah, maybe took a marriage and a loss of a child, I think, and, you know, other really difficult moments to bring you to today, but that's why they were necessary, right? So like necessary pains, right? Like, so like those growing pains that people speak of. But yes, what is it about me that I need to attend to so that I start to attract better experiences, right? And so to your point, no, there was nobody there, but like you flipped the switch because they were just used to you giving. They didn't know what that dynamic looked like for them to return because you never allowed that. I don't think that's what I'm hearing, right? And so we changed. You changed up on them. And the last thing most people like is change, unless they're in therapy.
Right.
Therapy kind of is supposed to force that. It's supposed to like force you into the area of unknown, which is so scary. And so I like to tell people, you know, like, let's learn how to coexist with the fear for a little bit. Because in every new level, we're going to have some sort of fear because we just don't know what to expect. You know, in a job interview or in a podcast or in any new thing that we're doing in life that does not feel typical. And so when we're typically attracted or attracting relationships that, you know, muzzle self and only focus on the outside party and then also have you doubting yourself, then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, was I ever validated as a child? Like, what did that attachment like? What did I learn early on to do? And like, what do I need to change? Because this isn't working for me.
Right. It wasn't working.
It's just, so going back to what we initially said, that takes a level of self-awareness. You have to say, this no longer fits me. So maybe I was okay with these types of friendships and relationships for the past 20 years because that's all I knew. But now I know that that is no longer what serves me. And why the whys are going to look different for everyone. You know, we could probably definitely go back to childhood and say, well, okay, this is why, right? Like, you know, maybe you had like an uneven, unhealthy type of attachment with your parents where, you know, you were the one that had to like do something and they weren't doing their part. I don't know, right? And that's going to look different for everyone. But, you know, maybe your parents didn't like instill value, you know, and worth, you know, and self-esteem, like affirmations. And so you spend your life trying to like live up to something that you never felt. But nonetheless, right? The whys aren't always that important. Not always. It's good to have self-awareness and acknowledgement. But once we know that something no longer serves us, whatever that thing is, now we know we need to aspire to do the opposite and work towards the opposite of what that looks like and find some type of happy balance. You know, let me give and then let me also receive.
Right. Nothing wrong with receiving of gifts.
Nothing wrong with receiving. Yeah. So
gift services, all of that, you know, just, and because a lot of times what we fail to realize is that we give a lot of ourselves and we don't receive a lot of themselves, right? Whoever the them is, right? And you have to begin to assess that and assess that purpose. And that is one of the biggest things that I know I did as far as the road to healing was assess purpose. Like, what is my purpose? What is your purpose? And where are we at in this purposed world together? And if we're not anywhere together in this purpose world, then that's where we're not going to be, is in this purpose world. You're going to exist over there. I'm going to exist over here. No hard feelings. Hey, how you doing? I wish you all the best. How are you? Okay, good. Okay. And you keep it moving. And I had to learn how to do that because I had a very serious issue. Number one, with saying no. And number two, with cutting people off. I didn't necessarily like that, right? Because I always felt that, and I think that also comes from a place of always feeling rejected. So therefore, you don't ever want to cut people off. You want to just always accept everybody without understanding that some people are just toxic, so you can't accept them. But even the toxic ones, oh no, you know, you just kind of embrace everybody. And when you deal with, when you finally have to sit down with yourself and deal with, okay, you know what, I might have felt rejected here, but I'm not rejected now, right? So it's like kind of placing it where it was at, why it happened, how it happened, you know, the situation surrounding it happening, and then coming to a common ground of understanding of, but that's not where I'm at today. You know, and I'm creating where I'm at today. So this is not where I'm at. So therefore, I don't need to feel this way anymore, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, a job application, right? Like that whole like, job announcement where they have like these criteria that you have to meet. For you and for everyone, the criteria can change. Usually life experience helps to shift that and shape it for us. And so like you, before you were married, the criteria may have been like, you know, codependency. All right, I just want somebody that I can give. And then, you know, someone who is not necessarily worried about my worth, but is like just okay with me giving, right? Like that was a criteria. Like that's where you were then.
I think that was an unknown criteria.
Absolutely.
It became known though, but it was unknown.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna tell you no lie. It was my friend who told me I was codependent. I was like, what? I don't need nobody. She was like, no. I'm gonna need you to look this up. And I was like, oh, okay. So when I looked it up, and I literally, I'm a note taker. So when I started looking it up and started watching all these videos on codependent, and when Carol sent me everything under the sun because she was like, you're gonna break this, okay? For at least the first 6 months of when everything transpired, every day I had a different video to watch, different something to read. I need you to look at this. I need you to look at that, because she was determined. She was like, I'm going to help you because this helped me.
Love it.
And I think everybody need a friend like Carol. Everybody need a Carol in their life, because she was like, no, I need you to recognize this within yourself, because there's a reason why you attracted that. And I need you to recognize this, because this is who you are with everybody. This has nothing to do with just him. This is who you are with and then she had the audacity to run down my good business. She was like, remember when you did this and you did that and then you did this and then you did that? And I was like, nobody asked you to remember all of that.
Yes, bring in the Carols, get rid of the Karens.
Hello, Karen, be going.
Go Carol. That's amazing. And then that also kind of, when we think about some of the things that we need to shift, that also attests to who you are as a character, because you had this Carol in your life who cared enough to help you pivot.
Listen, I think that good head going through that car window was enough for her. She was like, ma'am, hold up, wait, pause. And, sometimes it takes something so drastic and traumatic to even shift yourself. And I still didn't understand that I was codependent until I really started looking up and reading about it and understanding it. Because you read a list of, I don't got that criteria, I don't fit that, I don't fit that. But the ones you fit, that's you, boo, and wear it. Okay. Stop sitting up here acting like, okay, you're not gonna be all 20, but you got a good 15.
Right.
You don't want to admit you're 15 because there's 5 that don't know. Majority rules, boo.
Yeah.
You're cool. And that was me. I ain't even gonna lie. That was me because I was like, I don't fit that. No, I don't need. And then as I kept going, I was like, check. Well, we gonna have to get this. So now you start looking at how do you solve how do you deal with codependent? How do you do, and I had to literally, I think a lot of what I did was I went within self, like I researched things, but then I went within self to try and figure it, like Nakia, figure this out. And it wasn't easy. I ain't even gonna lie, it wasn't easy because I still battle with it at times. I'm much better, but I've learned my boundaries. I think a lot with codependency is you don't set boundaries. You don't have them or anything like that. But I had to literally learn how to set the boundaries. And then, and I had to learn how to accept kindness and gifts. I didn't know how, and I had to learn that it was okay if I needed help and to ask. When you don't ask for help, no, you are the problem solver, and someone can't come in and solve your problems. So it was, girl, my life has shifted, and I had to learn. I had to learn that it was okay to ask for help and not feel like I was becoming a user, right?
Yeah.
All that good stuff.
Yeah, yes. And I always like to tell my patients that what we want to look for is discomfort, right? So like you were like, I had to learn to do that. I'm sure it didn't feel good at first. It didn't feel comfortable. That's what we want to feel. Like we have to move towards that because that means we're doing something different. So.
I mean, so different, like different.
Yeah.
So, and that's why after my good experience, my mother, God bless her. She's hilarious. She was like, why don't you go date a white man? So I was like, Ma.
Yeah. But God is funny because right before I met my husband years ago, I was like, I'm done with black men. I was like, I'm done. And then I met this guy. I was like, oh, you lucky. You real.
He was like this close to not making it
in. Yeah, but you can be open. You can be open because a lot of our life difficulties are shared by others. A lot of other people can relate. We're not the only ones. And so it doesn't matter the color of your skin. Okay. A man is a man, and there are, global tendencies that can feel similar.
That's what I told.
So
I told her, I was like, Ma, I'm not whoever. She lucky because I told her. I'm not going to tell you what I told her that I was like, listen, you'd be lucky if I ever get with another man. I was like, the way this world is going, I'm about to go to that good sperm clinic, pick out my little Chinese sperm, and you just going to have an Asian grandkid and just be happy. She wasn't necessarily happy with that thought, but I told her that's what I was going to do. I meant it too. But now that I'm almost 40, I don't know if I really mean that anymore. So I might be over that part. But I didn't mean it when I said it 2 years ago. Now the truth of the matter is, I told her that. I promise you, I might have told her that like back when I was 20, and she had a complete heart attack. So then when I repeated it like 2 years ago, she was like, you know what? So we're going back to that. I was like, you don't want. I said, you got all these other nationalities in your grandkids. We might as well get Asia up in there somewhere. Like we might as well. Somewhere Asian flavor. She was like, oh my God. Needless to say, that has not happened. I have not. However, it was a thought.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I'll say to that is what I say to all of my patients. We have to be very intentional also, not only about what we think, but what we say. And what
I know.
we do our lives. And so here you said this at 20, and then here you said it again at 39, and here you are. So, let's be intentional about what you're speaking over your life going forward, whatever that is. If you really want you want to go to the IVF clinic, do it, fertility clinic, do it. Meditate on it first, think about it, and then go for it. But
I ain't gonna hold you. This is a different world out here right now. I think if I would have did it 5 years ago, it would be very different than me saying I'm gonna do it today. So that's my thought process for right now, right? 5-6 years ago, I might have been a little different. Even 2 years ago, because I'm not even gonna lie, 2 years ago, after I literally like maybe a month or so after I miscarried, I went to my doctor because he's a fertility specialist. That's who he is. He's an OBGYN, but he's literally a fertility specialist. And he was like, do you want to have a child? And I'm like, of course. And I was like, but I'm not with, he was like, well, where's your husband? I was like, don't ask me about him. Just leave that alone, doc. He was like, okay. He was like, well, listen, we can set you up. We have this, that, and the third, blah, 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 blah. And I actually took the pamphlet. I sat down with the lady. I signed into the little website where, you could get the whole list of everybody that's a sperm donor, like all that. I did all of that stuff, but something just prevented me from really just going forward because I literally was supposed to go back for my initial consultation. Like, cause he was like, listen, all you gotta do is pay for it and they'll ship it here and then we'll done. But I was just like, I didn't want to go that route. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm a lot more level-headed with my thoughts and intentional with my good words, as you said. So I have not necessarily spoken those words, probably like not in the last 2 years, but that's because I'm just really thinking about life and future. You know what I'm saying? Like, and where I'm at and how it is. One of the things that I did, I watched a friend's baby this past weekend. And one of the things that I actually realized this past weekend when watching her baby was I said, I don't want to be a single mother. Like, I don't. And so if I was to go that route, I would be a single mother. And I said, number one, I don't think that's fair to the child. And it was not fair to me. I couldn't do nothing. So I had to like literally process through a lot of that. So that at least watching a friend's baby helped me to realize I did not want to be a single mother. So as you can see, I'm very much so one thing I practice in all things I have learned is to be very much so aware and cognizant of myself. And I think that part of the healing process is to learn how to be that for yourself. Learn how to become self-aware, learn how to become one with yourself and with your thoughts and understanding like who you are.
Yeah. And that level of understanding continues to evolve, right? Like, we don't just hit a wall at some point and feel
like, oh,
aware. Yeah. That should continue. That's a continual process.
Every day.
You know
what I'm saying? Every day. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about relationships and even anxiety, because sometimes even when you're within yourself and when you're in relationships, there are certain triggers that you can actually have, positive and negative, right? Because not all triggers are bad. But I know for myself, because I do not take this journey as a once and done. I take it as a continual life journey, right? All of this is truly just, I'm journeying through life. And as I journey, I learn a lot of different things, even about myself, right? And one of the things that I have learned over, especially the last 2 years, are triggers. What triggers up my anxiety? What triggers up a certain level of frustration? What triggers up distrust? What triggers up maybe even a lack of hope, even a lack of understanding? And this goes across the board with all types of relationships, but especially romantic relationships, because that has been the area that I have struggled in the most, romantic relationships. And one of the things that I have learned is I might be triggered by something, but that does not necessarily mean that you have to feel my trigger, right? And because sometimes we can project our triggers onto another person, unbeknownst to them that they even triggered you, right? So I have learned how to understand that, okay, I was just triggered by that, but you don't know that that was my trigger, but it is my trigger. So now I need to figure out, how do I untrigger this trigger, right? And a lot of it has to do with me processing through the actual triggers. What do you have for that? Because I do believe that one of the things that I absolutely like about you and what you actually specialize in, which is trauma, and trauma-based counseling, trauma-based you call it something, but because what'd you call it?
What, trauma-focused therapy?
There you go, trauma-focused therapy. A lot of us have experienced a lot of traumatic experiences in and out of relationships, right? And due to those traumatic experiences, they have caused a lot of different triggers. And when you get triggered, sometimes you don't know how to handle it. I know for myself, there are certain triggers that literally cause me to go into a full-fledged panic attack. And like one of those triggers, it still kind of is a little bit, I've learned how to deal with it, but one of them was anytime, like if I was watching TV and a person would do a sonogram, they would be having a sonogram, and I would hear the baby's heartbeat. That would be instant. I am triggered for life. I got to shut this off, or I got to fast forward, and I got to get through this, right? Another one of those triggers would be, as far as like relationships, if I felt, it might not be what's absolutely being done, but if I felt that someone was trying to keep me as a secret, right? Because I lived that way with my ex-husband for a while. So it's like there are certain things that will trigger that I then have to look at and say, what is the character of this person? What is this? What is that? In order for me to be able to process through how I was feeling, to not project the fact that I think this is a trigger onto that person, but what it really, or project that trigger onto that person and say like, this is your personality, but it really isn't. This is how I'm feeling because of something that happened in the past.
Or it could be both, right? It could be something about their personality that
it could be personality, right?
Mm-hmm. So, well, one of the things in trauma-focused therapy is that we really have to have preventative strategies in place, and we need to identify what distress tolerance looks like. So even when you're triggered, like what can you do to tolerate it in that moment, especially if it's not something that you can change. And so I like that you said you even you have to process, right? Like what's going on. And in relationships, I always suggest that you take the time you need to process things. So you may have to have a to be continued conversation. You know what? I'm feeling very triggered right now by what's going on, and I would really appreciate some time to just process that on my own. Can we, discuss this later on tonight, or, later on this week, right? Depending on what you feel like you need. So in that moment, you'll be able to de-escalate, right? Like whatever it is that feels strong, whatever that strong emotion is that's like nudging at you. And then you'll be able to hopefully sift through the emotion and then identify what it is about that experience that felt triggering and go through that thought. So we want to be able to figure out ways to de-escalate ourselves when we do feel triggered. And even better, if we know what the trigger is, we can try our best to avoid them, right? Or prevent them from happening, or to address them once they do happen so that the likelihood of them reoccurring is slim. So, and in relationships, if you have a healthy one, we should be able to talk through triggers with our partners to reduce the likelihood of it occurring again. So, and if we can't, then that's another problem, right? Maybe there's miscommunication, or maybe that person is also dealing with things. having unhealthy tendencies that's preventing you from having some sort of healthy connection and communication. But anyway, so when we know the triggers, we have to say, okay, well, what can I put in place to de-escalate? And how can I be preventative going forward? So for one of my patients who actually disassociates, we identify triggers. So before she disassociates, she de-escalates once she feels the trigger, right? So trigger doesn't always have to mean spiral downwards. It just means that there is an awareness, alert, something is happening that I don't like. What is it? And how can I distract myself from this emotion to detach or de-escalate or whatever, so that I can come back into some sort of, logical state, rational mind. That's a whole process. And especially if there's more than one trigger. And for many people there are, because we've had more than one life difficulty. So we have to be aware of them and then work through them. And then figure out what we need to do for ourselves to nourish and de-escalate and to move through it.
Right. So tell the people about your therapy cards, because I think that your therapy cards will actually help a lot.
Okay. So my therapy cards, I actually have them here. They're called Your Doc in the Box. And so there's a nice soft box, and I really wanted to kind of stimulate different senses, right? So I wanted the touch to feel good. I wanted them to look nice and pretty. And then obviously we want to have content that feels relatable. And similar to what we discussed earlier, I developed these cards because I realized that most of us experience a lot of the same difficulties. And so here I find myself repeating myself to friends and even to patients and family members. And I'm like, well, why not put this in a card form or product form that everyone can have access to without me repeating myself, right? And so the cards have a career section, a life purpose section, because that's been a big one lately, people trying to find their life purpose, depression section, anxiety section, anger, forgiveness, love and relationships, and general well-being. So what is that? 7 different sections, and I have different cards within each section to discuss, common difficulties that I've encountered with many people. So your doc in the box is because I really want it to feel like therapy in a box. I'm here with you while you're home in the bed, under your cover, or traveling, or doing whatever in your own privacy, but having a moment, because a lot of times our moments are private. And so even if you're in therapy, you only have limited access to your therapist, but with these cards, you have, limitless access to helpful, suggestions to get through difficulties.
I think that is so. I told you when I was first introduced to you and I saw your video on the cards, I was like, I think this is great. I think that it is so out the box because it's your doc in the box.
Yeah.
And I think that it is much needed. My friend Mombi, she just commented I need the card. So I posted up the website, which is www.yourdocinthebox.com. They're also sold on Amazon. Yeah. They're also sold through your practice website as well. Let me pin your practice website as well, because I think that is important. What I will say is that Dr. Cass works in various different fields of expertise as it relates to therapy, and I think that you cover such a wide range that you're a well-rounded therapist to help everyone, and especially to help them to process through whatever it is that they are actually needing to process through. With, like you said, there are a lot of people nowadays that are just trying to find their purpose now. Oh my God, we're in a pandemic, and what in the world do I need to do? Right. And because a lot of us have taken so much time now, we've had a lot of time on our hands to sit and think. And there is a structured way to think, and then there is an unstructured way to think. And sometimes our thoughts become unstructured and we just become all over the place, which then can produce a lot of different things. So I think that it is important that, we do begin to seek help in a structured way in order for us to function better, you know what I'm saying? And become productive.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's an intentional way of being.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All about intentional. I know I did. I'm going to ask this just because no shade to all the great life coaches out here in the world. No shade. However, it is very specific that when you sign up to become a life coaching explicitly states that you are not a therapist. You are a life coach. Your job is to outline ways in order to help a person push through life, right? So your job as a life coach is to basically come up with a plan. The person is basically telling you what their goals are, what their dreams are, what their aspirations are, and your job is to guide them through that. What is the difference between a life coach and an actual therapist? Because some life coaches really think that they are therapists and they are not. And one of the golden rules that you learn in life coaching is that you are not a therapist. You are not a licensed counselor. I took life coaching certification, right? I don't brag about it. I don't boast about it. But one of the very first things that they taught, like within the first day, they said, you are not a therapist and you do not have the clinical expertise, nor do you have a license to give that level of counsel. Your job is to just do this. You come up with a plan and that's it, right? And I think that for some odd reason, that there is a sector that gets that confused. What would you, right? There is some they get it confused. You being a licensed therapist within the state, not a person that just has a certification, what would your advice be to even people like myself, right? I'm not one. I'm just letting y'all know right now, because if I find that you have a mental health issue, I am going to refer you to a actual licensed therapist. That is not my calling. So I have to do that. But there are others that don't know how to do that. What would your professional advice be to assist those that want to go into life? They don't necessarily want to be a licensed therapist. They just want to go into life coaching. What would your recommendation be for them as a professional in this field for what they should do?
I don't know. I don't really know much about life coaching. So based on what you're saying, that sounds like one piece of what we do in therapy, right? We develop treatments, plans to help people function and to work towards something, a goal, right? But we also target underlying needs and specific to psychological underlying needs as a result of whatever it is that they've experienced. So like that's that side of it. And on top of that, we have an ethics committee, a board that we answer to. And so, that also holds us to a different standard. But beyond that, I can't compare the two. I have no idea. I've never had a life coach. I don't know really much about them. I do know that there are a lot of them now. But I do think that it's important for every professional to remain within the area of competency. And so we have to know what our boundaries are, even in that area. And if something surpasses that, then we have to ethically say, this is beyond my scope of knowledge, and respect it and refer out. And even I have to do that sometimes. There are even cases even that I could treat if I wanted to, but I have to say I don't have enough experience in that area to take that case on, or, it's triggering, right? Or, recognizing your own biases and refer out. So we have to know what our own limitations are, right? So if you're a life coach, being self-aware of your own limitations so that you don't surpass them is important for everyone in every career field.
And that is one of the major ones that they do say. They do talk about your own limitations and your own biases, and how if it is something that is triggering to you, you might not be qualified to deal with that aspect of it. So you might need to, exit stage left and refer stage right. So yeah, no, but I think I think that that's good advice, because sometimes people can cross over boundaries. And it might be unbeknownst to them. It might be innocent, but it can have a lasting effect on a person, which is one of the reasons why I tell everybody, like even when I was like heavily in ministry, in ministry, people look at you as, you're their counselor, right? But if it's something that I'm not equipped for, I cannot counsel you in that area, in that realm. You need a actual counselor. Like someone that might be able to even prescribe a pill. I don't have that ability, but I think, like you just said, like you have the integrity in order to know I need to refer out, because you're not a psychiatrist.
Right.
That's a whole different level, in and out of itself. So I think that everybody respecting the boundaries within the field, right, and understanding what your limitations are is important. I don't know why that popped in my head, but it just popped in there. So I just said, I'll just throw it out there, because we have a lot of, like you said, there are a lot of life coaches. Everybody thinks they're like Iyanla, and everybody is not. The truth of the matter is that she actually on her show has a lot of psychologists that work with her within the realm of what she's doing. So we might not see them in the forefront because it's her show. So we got to see her, but we also have to understand that there is an entire production that is going on. So no one is going to have someone that is not a licensed therapist telling someone how to unpack without there being a licensed therapist sitting there in somewhere behind the scenes saying, okay, yeah, do that. Right. So, I just think that definitely is important for us to highlight, because at the end of the day, whatever you are doing, whether you are necessarily a life coach, whether you are a psychologist, whether you are a licensed mental social worker, I'm learning all of these different letters, I'm telling you right now, licensed clinical social worker, licensed social worker, psychologists. You even got a lot of sociologists that kind of deal with psychology a little bit somewhere around, you know what I'm saying? Everybody working within their realm, because at the end of the day, the main focus should be to get people on a path, a clear path to some form of healing. And for a life coach, the path should be in order for them to live a fulfilled life. Right, however they need to fulfill their life, we're not necessarily, as a life coach, you're not necessarily taking a person on the path to healing. You're taking them on a journey of life, how to, execute their plans of life. So it is a little different. But it's all along, because at the end of the day, in order for you to be, live and have a clear path to life, you also got to live, you got to be whole, and you got to be healed, and you got to be, got to be full.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I just want to
thank you. Working together. That's what it sounds like.
Let me say that. I probably, let me say, if I ever really and truly wanted to take the life coaching like a step further, I would definitely have to probably be able to engage and refer out to at least a couple of psychologists, because sometimes that's what people need. Yeah, I can put you on a path, but you might, and if you want to be whole, you're going to need to go on a completely different path. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can put you on this path, but if you want to be whole, we're going to have to get you on another path so that we can complete out your wholeness, and you know what I'm saying, so that you can live and be free and actually be prosperous. And nothing worse than putting you on a path for life, and in order for you to fulfill certain dreams, but you're not prosperous because you're still miserable and you're still devoid of all the good emotions on the inside. So I believe in the wholeness and the oneness of people as a whole. Forget it, we got so many different people that are walking around here partitioned off, you know, and we need everybody to be whole. We don't need all these partitioned people that's walking around here trying to act like you're whole and you're not. So I personally want to tell people to definitely, if you just like even how my friend said, she's like, I need to get those cards. Order the cards. Go on Amazon. Go on your docinabox.com. I'm also going to, after this is this live gets posted, I'm going to go back into the comments, and I'm actually going to post Dr. Cass's website for her practice website. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I believe that it is imperative that, number one, she is Black owned, and we are supporting Black owned. Friend just said, she was like, I just ordered them. See, that's what I'm talking about. You know, we move quickly in this season. We ain't got time to wait, because you know what? And like you kept talking about being intentional. When you're intentional about your healing, when you're intentional about your wholeness, and when you're intentional about what you want, you're going to go out there and you're going to go get it. So definitely order the cards, because you never know what you might need. And also, if you need Dr. Cass, you will have her practice information so that you can contact her, you know, schedule your consultations, schedule your appointments. I believe that it is important now, and especially in the season that we are in, that when we come out of this, after this, when we come out of this, let us come out of this with a sound mind, a whole mind, and a free mind, in order for us to truly go out there and conquer whatever it is you want to conquer. I don't care what it is you want to conquer. Unless it's criminal, we don't conquer it. There's no conquering in criminality, okay? There's no conquering in that. You know what I'm saying? You got to put that out there. Folks be like, oh, because I'm going to be the best drug dealer. No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
So, no conquering in criminality. But what I'm saying is that when we come out of this, you should be fulfilled. You should be whole. Your mind should be clear. Your mind should be free, and you should literally, be able to walk out of this situation, this pandemic. We still yet are in the midst of a pandemic, and on top of that, we're in the midst of highly racial times. We're in the midst of a highly politicized time. So we're going through, we are literally going through a lot of things all at the same time. Truth be told, we have literally been like thrusted back into like the 40s, 50s, and 60s, to be honest. So I think that it is imperative that when we do come out of this, that we actually do come out of this whole. I don't want to see any broken pieces. I don't want to see any of that in anybody. And that is part of the reason why I wanted to, really focus on mental health, mental wealth, and are you really okay? And I really wanted to bring out real professionals in the field to talk to y'all so that y'all can understand how imperative this is for us. So Dr. Cass, whatever you want to end us with, go on ahead, girl.
So I will just end in saying that, when we are intentional, it's almost like setting a GPS, right? It allows us to be very goal driven. And it helps us to shape and to work towards the direction that feels desirable. That is our way of taking control over whatever it is that we have within access. So let's do that as often as we can. And let's just strive to be the best selves that we can be, whatever that's going to look like in the midst of this pandemic and all of the other harsh waves associated with all of the other moving variables. Staying above water, however we can, using whatever life book we have made available to us as often as we need to. So thank you so much, Nakia, for having me. It's been an honor, and it was a great conversation. And I look forward to returning.
You definitely will be back. I'm telling you that right now, because I find this so important as a person that has struggled with their mental health, right? I think that it is imperative. Y'all have to understand one thing about me. I am never going to come up on here in front for anybody. I'm a very real person, and I go through real things, and I have been through some real things. So everything that I discuss is because it is deeply embedded within me in order to help other people to heal and to become whole. So, Dr. Cass, that is why you will definitely be back, because there's yet still more for us to unpack. And you have a wealth of knowledge. Like I even told the young lady last week, I'm like, we have to showcase our knowledge. And one of the best ways that we can showcase it is when we are literally out here and speaking. It's okay to be behind closed doors, but we got to see you up front and personal. And I'm telling y'all right now, get those cards. I'm actually ordering mine because I do understand that I still have work to do. Hello. And y'all might listen. I might be a good patient of Dr. Cass real soon. Be like, ma'am, pause. Hello. Crisis mode, but it's imperative that we recognize and realize when we actually do need help. So Dr. Cass, I appreciate you. Like I said, in order for y'all, if y'all want to purchase these cards, I really do recommend them. You're at docinthebox.com. If you do need to talk to someone, I am going to post her information, because this is her field. This is what she specializes in, and she can definitely help you, because that's what she's here to do. Help us, right? So y'all have a good night, and I truly want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I truly want to thank. My phone was going off with the shares. I truly appreciate everybody for sharing. My phone was going off with the what they call the watch parties. Let me tell y'all are truly awesome. I truly do appreciate everything that y'all do to support the Muzzle is Off podcast. I want y'all to understand one thing, that there are a lot of things that I'm working on behind the scenes in order to take this podcast to the next level. And I can't do this without y'all being the ones that are watching, being the ones that are viewing, and being the ones that are commenting, being the ones that are supporting. So I want y'all to know that I truly do appreciate it. And just stay tuned very soon for a major announcement concerning this podcast, because this is something that truly was birthed out of pain. Right. And sometimes, you can't necessarily see it, but wait, boom, here. Anyway, this tattoo that's right here, can't really see it, but it truly, what it means is, it says that I turned my pain into my passion, into my purpose. Right. And this podcast was literally birthed out of pain, but the pain has produced my purpose. So therefore, there definitely is an announcement coming very soon concerning this podcast. I can't announce it just yet, but it's coming very soon, and you guys will definitely be the first to know what is yet to come. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I hope y'all enjoy. Come back next week. We are going to have 3 guests with us next week. We're going to have 2 people that are actually they work in the field, but they're not licensed in the field at all. One is an actual student of psychology. Another person, works with juveniles within the psychological realm. And then, y'all know, if anybody knows me, knows I'm forever trying to network with all these different people. And I will have he is a LMSW, licensed mental social worker. I believe that's licensed mental social worker, yes. That will be on next week, and we're going to continue along with the same conversation. We're just literally unpacking mental health, mental wealth. Are you really okay? And the road to healing. So thank y'all for tuning in. I hope y'all all have a great night, great evening. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and tune in next week. Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.